much, Dr. Tucker. Thank you to everyone who was here tonight. Thank you to Dr. Kornstrom, hope I'm saying that right, for a wonderful day today. So she picked me up at my hotel this morning, and we went to Alpine Independent School District and also Marfa Independent School District, and I was able to see children and teachers in classrooms, and it was just an outstanding day. After you spend 32 years seeing kids every single day, it's quite a transition to go into an adult world where you're not seeing kids every day. She knew that I needed those hugs. So I thank Sul Ross for having me, and also to the Poindexter lecture series sponsors, thank you as well. So my name is Missy Testerman. I am the 2024 National Teacher of the Year. Whenever I found out that I was going to be the National Teacher of the Year, the first thing that they did, they called me on a Friday. And on Monday, I flew to Washington, D.C., and we were overlooking the beautiful Potomac River. We were in a public relations firm. And all I had to say was, my name is Missy Testerman. I am the 2024 National Teacher of the Year. We did that for like 5 hours until finally they were like, that's it. I never figured out what the it was, but they were like, that is the thing you're going to have to say the most throughout the year, and it is. So whenever I got here last night, it was about 10 o'clock, but I could already tell that Alpine was a lot like my hometown of Rogersville, Tennessee, because you guys had Dollar General stores, and you also had just a McDonald's. You do have a Pizza Hut that you can eat in. That is a privilege. 5 years ago, ours was raised, and then they built a new one back, but you can only get takeout, and it just doesn't hit the same way. So I tell you what, I don't need the clicker. I'm at the podium. I'll just do it this way. And it's not working. Sorry about that. I cannot get the slides to move. All right, maybe I'm challenged here. Well, we'll just keep going, even though without the slides. Sorry. He's coming to fix me up. Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. Will it do it that way? Yes. Oh, okay, just do it the clicker and that. Okay, and not this thing. Okay, has to be the mouse. All right, I got you. Thank you. All right, so I told Dr. Kornstrom today when we were driving around, I was kind of in awe of how beautiful the landscape is here. These are mountains near my home. So we have mountains. Mountains are not shocking. What is shocking is that I often forget that there are rock formations underneath the trees of the mountains of East Tennessee. And so today when we were driving through, I was just marveling at just how exceptionally beautiful it is here. But that we have mountains, they're just not like this one. But Rogersville, Tennessee is a lot like Alpine. It's a very, very small community, around 4,500 people, so it's actually a little bit smaller than Alpine. I've lived my entire life in this very small town. Our downtown looks like it's straight out of a Hallmark movie, and occasionally someone in our town is involved in a scandal that could be the basis of a Lifetime movie. So it's a good amount of balance. But the great thing about living in a small town, for those of you who have lived here a long time, is that when you live in a small town, you don't even have to keep up with what you're doing, because there will always be somebody else in your really small town who wants to do that for you. But Rogersville is not quite as diverse as Alpine, Texas. We are 99.9% white. Probably all of our minorities added together would be less than 0.1% of our population. My son's girlfriend is Honduran and Brazilian, and she was home this past weekend with him. And we had this street festival that we call Heritage Days. It actually takes place on those streets that are on the slide. And she said to me, Rogersville is the most white people doing white people place I've ever been. So I will take that, because that's, we're doing some things out there, but it's not a very, very diverse area. So teaching English as a second language is sometimes an interesting endeavor in Rogersville, Tennessee, due to our lack of diversity. But sorry about that. That's me doing crazy stuff here. Let's try this again. This is my school, Rogersville City School. We are a pre-K through 8 school system. We only have one school in our whole school system. Once our kids graduate from our school in 8th grade, they go on to the county high school. But it's a really different situation than a lot of schools, because all of our teaching staff, all of our students, all of our central office people, our director of schools, we're all contained in one building. I'm sure that my director probably dreams of like a cushy office across town, but instead he gets to share a restroom with the 5th grade boys. He's wonderful though. He actually gets out every single day and does crosswalk duty. This summer, he was talking to our summer program kids, and he asked, does anyone know what my job is? And we had a 4th grader who raised his hand, and he said, I do. You're the road teacher. So because the kids are so used to seeing him, but I had taught 1st and 2nd grades for 30 years, had absolutely no plan of changing anything, loved teaching 1st and 2nd grade, loved being the one to help unlock the love of learning. And one day that fall, our school's English as a second language teacher came to me and said that she would be moving at the end of the school year. Her husband was taking a job in another part of Tennessee. She wasn't just the ESL teacher. She was the resource for our students, for our families. She was their advocate. I had been very blessed to always be the teacher in 1st or 2nd grade who had each one of our non-native speakers in my classroom. So I was vested in them and in their families. I was devastated and worried about what would happen to them. And the very next day, I received an email from the state of Tennessee that went out to every teacher in Tennessee, and it was explaining Tennessee's Grow Your Own program. So part of Tennessee's Grow Your Own program is a registered apprenticeship for people who are working in schools as a pathway to become teachers. But part of it has an arm for teachers who are already serving in your state's class, in Tennessee classrooms, to add licensure in a hard-to-fill endorsement area. So the options were math, special education, and English as a second language. So each district could recommend one person. I went to my director and asked that he recommend me. He was very, very shocked. I told no one else except my husband, and enrolled in the coursework. Things were going really, really well until the very first night that I had to submit an assignment. Now, I came through college at a time when we did not use Canvas or Blackboard or eLearn or any of those portals straight out of Satan's den, and I needed to upload an assignment. And it's 11:40 at night, it's due at midnight, and I can't get it to attach. The older people are all laughing. They're like, yeah, I was totally flipping out. So my daughter was a junior at the University of Tennessee, and we talked every day multiple times, because if Chick-fil-A left her sauce out, she called and told me. If someone got her spot at the grocery store, she called and told me. But I was never the one originating the phone calls. But I called her and I said, Caroline, you've got to help me. I'm on Blackboard. And she doesn't say, sure, Mom, you gave birth to me and you've given me this really opulent lifestyle. She said, why are you on Blackboard? I said, I don't have time to explain. Please help me. So come to find out, that little blue line, when it almost gets over to the edge, you're not supposed to click again and help it work a little faster. So once I got past that, it was fine, completed the coursework, took my very first praxis exam at age 52, passed, and became our school's English as a second language specialist. Our school system is so small that whenever that happens, you're also the program director and you're also the Title III director. So I became all three of those things like completely overnight. But I absolutely love teaching 1st and 2nd graders. But I have found my life's mission as an English as a second language teacher. So here are my students. If you're thinking they're adorable, well, I agree with you, because they are. When I first inherited the caseload, I had 21 students. Now, most of my students are not Spanish speakers. I think a lot of times that's something people assume. They're like, oh, you've got a bunch of Spanish speakers. Well, I do have some Spanish speakers, but I also have speakers of other languages. When families move into my area, they tend to move in just one single family. And so they don't even know each other. Like I have 2 Indian families. They did not know each other until I introduced them to each other. So they don't even have like their own little subculture that they can belong to. They are just an island in our little town. But I had 21 students from 3 continents, Asia, North America, and Africa, 5 countries, Mexico, Egypt, India, Honduras, and China. This was last year. And they represented 4 different language backgrounds, and of course English was the language that they shared, but have some really cool stories within my student groups. So I have 2 sets of identical twins, all girls. If you look at the set of twins on the first row, they are actually what's called mono twins, meaning that they started as one egg that split, shared the same placenta and umbilical cord. They are carbon copies of each other. To make it less confusing, their parents named them Hannah and Jana. So I had a lot of trouble keeping them straight. I had taught their older daughters, the family had 2 older daughters, and I had taught them in 2nd grade, so I was pretty close to this family. So I said to the dad, Mr. Elkamesh, I'm having a really hard time keeping Hannah and Jana straight. Is there like a magic trick? And he said, oh, it is so easy. One is good and one is evil. But they are both perfectly behaved at school, so that does not help me very much. But if you go back here to this young Chinese girl next to the end, next last row on the end, her name is Catherine. Catherine talks so little in class that her teachers will come to me and ask, can Catherine talk? Is Catherine able? Yes, Catherine actually scored really, really high on the English language proficiency exam on speaking. She just doesn't feel comfortable doing it in most classrooms in our building. But whenever she comes to the ESL room to eat lunch with me or to see me because she's tested out of needing services, she does not hush. She talks the whole time. She's the funniest kid that I have. But Catherine was born on March 20th, 2013 in China on the continent of Asia. Directly in front of her is Netta. Now, Netta is the big sister to the twins I just told you about. Netta does affirm that one of them is indeed evil. But Netta was also born March 20th, 2013 in Egypt on the continent of Africa. Somehow, some way, both of those sweet babies ended up half a world away in Rogersville, Tennessee, where they are best buds. But all of my students come from very interesting backgrounds. All are either first-generation Americans or immigrants themselves. This young man against the back wall back here is Adrian. And Adrian is 11, going on 37. He is obsessed with all things financial and money, and he has a really good plan for himself. He told his friends, my students were concerned I would not come back after this year was over. And he told them he knew that I would come back because I was not 59 and a half, and I could not pull out my retirement without penalty. But he has a definite plan for his life because he's going to get married when he's 18 because single people have more taxes deducted from their paychecks than married people. But I'm so incredibly proud of my students. When I got ready to go on leave as the National Teacher of the Year, my caseload of students who needed daily services down to 2 students. One moved to Florida, one went to the high school, the other 17 have tested out of ESL services, and I don't determine that. They take the annual federally required English language proficiency exam, and they've scored enough. But that speaks to the teachers that work with them the other 6 hours of the day, to their parents for being dedicated to their education, and to the hard work ethic that they have. So I am just incredibly proud and honored to advocate for them and their families. So whenever I was a little girl, from the very first minute that I walked into kindergarten, I wanted to be a teacher. I knew because my teacher was Mrs. Brown. She was fabulous. She was wonderful. She was beautiful. She was having a baby. So I would go home and I would put dolls up my shirt because I wanted to be so much like her. And she was just absolutely fantastic. When I was in second grade, I had Mrs. Reimer. Mrs. Reimer was the very first teacher to ever mention the concept of college to me. No one in my family had been to college before. That was not a word I was even familiar with. But she told me that I would be a great teacher and that all I had to do was to grow up and go to college. And so that was kind of what sparked the whole start for me. But Mrs. Reimer was fabulous. And you're probably like, why are there pictures of animals up here? This was back in the 1900s, guys, you know. And when I was in second grade, every day we had reading groups. And we had 3 reading groups in our room. We had the cheetahs, the tigers, and the turtles. I was a cheetah. My teacher spent a lot of her time with the turtles, and don't think she was terrible. This was a pretty common practice back then for teachers to identify groups like that. I look back, I'm like, what were you guys thinking? It was a pretty common practice. So during the time that she was working with the turtles, even though I was painfully shy, I became the boss babe of the cheetahs. I was in charge of that group. I told them when it was their turn to read. If I did not like you, you only got to read 2 sentences. If I really liked you, you got to read a lot. And I had absolutely no strategies whatsoever other than telling kids to sound it out, no matter what the word was. So people think the science reading's been around a long time. I can tell you it was present in the 1970s. But she was the first person to ever put that seed in my mind. So in second grade, I would go home and I would play school with my sister. She was only 2. She didn't even know what school was. She was also not a very good student, and she frequently required paddlings. My dad must have thought that he was the principal of my little homeschool because he came right in. We didn't even have a 504 or an M-team meeting or anything. He just jerked her out of my classroom and issued a no contact order. So I was just one of those kids from the very beginning who knew that I wanted to be a teacher. So fast forward, and I was able to attend East Tennessee State University, which is very, very, very much like Sul Ross. It is a small regional university, serves a mountainous population in a high poverty area. The similarities are absolutely uncanny. But whenever I graduated, I was hired in the middle of the year to do a maternity leave. I graduated in December. And whenever I went in, I was 21 years old. There were 29 kids in that room. I don't know who thought that that was a good idea, that we put this 21-year-old in there. But the very first day this lady was there, her name is Carol. She was the instructional assistant or paraprofessional in that classroom. She knew I was totally clueless, so she took over. And she was having them do this little vocabulary game where they were divided into 2 teams and they would run up to the front of the room. She would give them a word to write. Whoever spelled it correctly got a point for their team. So she tells them a word, and the word is ship with a P at the end. And a kid goes to the board, and you can guess what he wrote on the board. I was hoping that was not a bad sign. I'd chosen the wrong career. And so she said, no, Ricky, that's not it. Just erase it. She did not miss a beat, didn't have, any anger about it or anything, but she was fabulous. So over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, I was able to convince her to go back to East Tennessee State University, finish her degree, and come back to our school. She served for 20 years. She was my daughter's 3rd grade teacher. She was the best teacher my daughter ever had. She now serves on my school board, and I'm so thankful that she was there in that moment. So those of you who are headed into the profession, when you get there, those paraprofessionals are master teachers. They just haven't finished school. They've maybe not had the opportunities to do that. But you need to listen to those people, learn from those people, because those people are absolutely educational masters, and they are so important. One resource that I feel like that we're not tapping into as a country right now during the shortage of teachers, Our schools are loaded with people who would give anything to have a teaching license, and they would be a really, really good teacher that very first day because they've spent years of their life invested. We've got to figure out a way to invest into those people, help make pathways for them because they're already there doing the work to alleviate some of the crunch that we're feeling. So I'm just so incredibly grateful that when I walked in that classroom, Carol was there. But when I was in college, I had this dream. Now, I was not an Instagram kid. This was back in the 1900s, remember? But I had dreams. I had dreams that I was going to work with a bunch of young, cute, trendy people, and we were going to wear our young, cute, sexy school clothes, and we were just going to look fabulous every day. Now, keep in mind, this is what I thought we were going to wear. I had one of those for most days of the month. Raise your hand if your teacher ever wore those. Yeah, raise your hand if you are a teacher and you wore those. Not many. You guys were really behind the trends. Okay, that's all right. That's okay. But we had those for every day of the week. Here is the funny part. I got rid of mine years ago. To do these slides, I looked this up on like eBay, and these things are going for like $75. It is a retro thing. But I thought that we were going to wear these really cool clothes. We were going to do really cute, trendy things to work together. That did not work out because they put me with a bunch of old people in their early 30s. They were already married, they already had kids. I'm not sure what they had to look forward to in life, but they were just out there plugging away. And this lady in particular was absolutely my saving grace. Her name was Mary Jo Weaver, and she was absolutely the best mentor teacher that anyone could have ever been placed with. Not only did she turn me into a better teacher, she turned me into a better person, but Mary Jo would always ask, what's best for kids? What do you think the best thing for your kids is? Because that was how she lived her teaching life. So whenever you start teaching, a lot of times your district assigns you a mentor. If that mentor is not someone that you're feeling a jive with, you may still have to complete the mentorship program because Tennessee has that. But find someone in your building that you want to be like, that you want to teach like, and that you want to be like in 15 years. Go and ask that person if they will mentor you. And two things will happen. Number one, you will absolutely pump them up. And our teachers who've been in the classroom a long time need that. We need the positive energy that our young people are bringing in. Number two, it will ensure you that you have someone looking out for your back and helping you become a better teacher in your school. Every school climate study ever done has proven that schools are best when there's a good mix of beginning teachers with all that new exciting energy. Mid-career people who are about 15 years in, and older people like me. The best school climate is when you have a good mix of that. When it gets off balance and you have too many old people and not enough young people, it's not good. When you have too many young people, not enough older and middle people, it's also not good. So our young people can be a very important factor in that. You guys bring a level of energy I cannot bring. Our young teachers coming in bring the energy, and our schools absolutely positively need that. Our teachers who've done this a long time are beaten down through policies, bureaucracy. It's never the kids. It's always the decisions made by adults. But you can help change that for everyone within your school district. So this summer, one of the experiences that I got to have as the National Teacher of the Year is that I was able to go to space camp with the other state teachers of the year. I will be completely honest, I'm not a math or science type person. I'm a reading, language, that kind of person. So whenever we went, I wasn't the most excited. Plus, we were going to stay in college dorms. Y'all, I was a commuter kid. I never had lived in a college dorm. They also put me with the youngest person in our cohort. She's 25 years old. So I was like the youngest and one of the oldest, but she was fabulous. But I wasn't really pumped up about going to space camp. I understood it was a privilege to be there, and I kept telling myself, so many people would like to be here. You need to appreciate this. But the activities that we did were aligned to not only help us become better science and math teachers, They were aligned to help us form a team. So there were 4 teams, and we were dividing the teams, and we were actually in charge of missions. And I don't know who put these groups together, because they were not groups of people within the State Teacher of the Year cohort that I'd even hung out with a whole lot. Minus 1 or 2 people in the cohort. I knew them, I liked them, but I hadn't been around them. But over the course of the year, or over the course of that week, we bonded together, we worked together, we learned, we achieved. And what I began to realize are that our classrooms are like that. You start out with a group of kids that you don't know, they don't know you, you don't know their parents. And by the time May comes, they're like this little family that you've created. You're always going to be important to them. They're always going to be important to you. And so whenever we're in our classrooms, it's so important that we remember, no matter if you've taught 30 minutes or you've taught 30 years, we're all on the same mission. And that's to give our kids everything that they need from us. I'm gonna brag a little bit. We were probably the hottest mess team put together. We had some really strong personalities within our team, but we actually were named the most outstanding space camp team at the end of space camp. So we were super proud of that. One thing I'm not proud of is that one night I was preparing for a presentation, and they were having a get together in the room that was my room, and the RA showed up. The 20-year-old RA showed up with all of the State Teachers of the Year from across America. So to diffuse, I was in my bedroom working, because I had a presentation the next day, just to clarify. To diffuse the situation, they offered him a beer. He was 20. That's illegal. But it was a really, really great experience. So I can say now that an RA showed up to tell my room to be quiet. But it is forming those relationships that we talked about just a minute ago with your kids in your classroom that helps achievement happen. But, this is a big but, we cannot love kids into proficiency. Loving our kids is not enough. You can't love kids and be thankful that you have that job and you just want to take care of them. You have to absolutely positively push them, teach them with a level of rigor that allows them to achieve the goals that they need to be achieving. Our educational system is set up on a continuum. If we have a kid and he doesn't get what he needs in first grade, when he goes to second grade, he's behind. If he doesn't have an outstanding second grade year and catch up on some of that, by the time he goes to third grade, he's almost 2 years behind. We know it's almost impossible to remediate those kids who get so far behind. So if you absolutely love your kids, the best thing you can do is teach your kids at a high enough level that encourages them to push forward. Now, I'm not saying throw out a bunch of impossible tasks. That's just frustration. That's not rigor. Rigor is starting where a kid is and inching that kid up, making sure they have scaffolds to support them, and then taking those scaffolds away after they don't need them anymore, and then pushing them on to do greater things. This photograph was taken from my school doors. So Rogersville, much like your area, is an area where we grapple with the effects of generational poverty. This is a public housing community that has been across from my school for probably 75 years. A lot of students from my school come from this housing community, but I now know several doctors, lawyers, nurses, teachers, my plumber, an airline pilot, architects, who have come out of these humble beginnings, and it was not because the teachers in my school loved these kids. We absolutely loved them, but it was because we expected great things out of them. We had really high expectations. We pushed and pushed and pushed until they knew that they could achieve. Part of that included encouraging their parents to also push them, telling their parents that we know that they can do so much more than what they're doing. So it's really, really important that we don't get so caught up in thinking that loving our kids is enough, because it's not. I absolutely, if you're a teacher, I want you to love your kids. I love my own kids. I also push them like everything because I love them and I want them to have a good life. We have to think the same thing of the kids in our classroom. I want you to meet well, I want to go back just one second. So I want to tell a story real quickly. I was doing an event at the University of Tennessee not long ago, and the sound wasn't working. So they called up the person who was the head of the entire tech department, and she comes in and she says, "Miss Testerman, do you remember me?" Okay, y'all, I've taught a really long time, so those words kind of instill fear in my heart, but I did. I remembered her, and her name was Janae. Janae had been one of my Beta Club kids whenever I was the Beta Club sponsor. One morning before Janae told the story that I'd forgotten. One morning before our Beta Club meeting, she told me how she was going to be able to go on a vacation and spend the night in a hotel for the first time. She was a sixth grader headed to seventh grade, had never spent the night away from her own home. And she commented that the reason that was possible was because her brother was in high school. The housing authority had a program where if you made good grades the entire year, you were eligible for a free month of rent. And so I said, well, does your family get credit for your grades? Because this was a top kid. And she said, no, because our school does grades differently. At that time, my school used the ABC grading scale. We did not put numerical averages on the report card. So this was something that really, really bothered me, not just for Janae, but for our other kids who lived in that housing community. So I went to my principal. He touched base with the director of the housing authority and found out that, yes, all that's required is that you have a numerical average on your report cards. So we had a faculty meeting, and he announced that at the beginning of the next school year, everyone would go to that change. I had absolutely no idea the firestorm that was getting ready to unleash. After the meeting, an older teacher, and when I say older, I was 25, so everyone was older. I assume she had one foot in the grave and was ready to go to glory. She was actually younger than I am now, but she came up and grabbed me by the arm. She was livid, because she felt like I was advocating for a policy that was going to make her life so much harder. Apparently, she had just been eyeballing the grades and putting something down, not averaging them. She was furious, but it was the best lesson that 25-year-old me could have learned, because what I learned was when you do the right thing for kids, there may be times that you have to stand up even to the people that you work with. That's an unpleasant reality of teaching, but it does happen. This next quote is one that I actually saw at an event that I did this year. And it says, "Through knowledge, we unlock the power to shape our future." And I think that one is so incredibly important. The fact that you're here, those of you who are students, you're here, you're enrolled in coursework, and you're headed on your way to becoming a college graduate, means that you're unlocking the power to shape your own future and your family's future, not just your future. You're not going to be 22 years old forever. But like I said, the university I graduated from is a lot like this one. It serves a high poverty area, a mountainous area, a very, very rural area. I was a first generation college student. My parents loved me. They wanted the best for me. But when I enrolled in college, my parents did not quite understand why I was not getting a full-time job. Sometimes when you're from families where no one's gone to college before, they feel like you're just you're delaying getting a full-time job by going to school. They don't really understand that a few more years of schooling or learning a trade or a skill at a technical school is going to enable you to make more money the rest of your life and have a better quality of living. Those are some of the barriers that our first generation college students have. I'm just curious, anyone in here a first generation, were you or are you a first generation college student? A lot of hands. I am super, super proud of you guys. I've been down that road and I know it's a hard road. Now I want to continue with that. Are any of you who are not college students now, you're graduates, are any of you now the parents of college students or college graduates? Let's give these people a round of applause. Because what you did, you changed the trajectory of your entire family for generations. You didn't do it just for you. You did it for your kids that come behind you. It was something I never thought about till my youngest child walked off the stage at the University of Tennessee. And it hit me, there will not be a child in my family who's never heard of college, because graduating college is a family tradition. So those of you who fought that fight, it's paying off, and it'll pay off for generations. Those of you who are like, I'm not sure this is going to be worth it, I 100% assure you that it will be worth it. So I want you to meet Jasmine, specifically Dr. Jasmine Seal. Jasmine also lived in that federal housing community across from my school. I met Jasmine for the first time when I was taking my own son to school, to kindergarten, for his kindergarten screening day. I was on maternity leave because I had just given birth to my daughter. And when I get to the school, there's a tiny little thing standing there at the door trying to ring the doorbell above her head, because she was also there for her kindergarten screening appointment. She was staying with her grandmother across the street. Mom had set an alarm to tell her when to get up and when to come to the school. She walked herself across for her screening. She was the oldest of 6 children already as a 5-year-old, but it was instant that Jasmine had an incredible amount of brilliance. My son had absolutely every single good thing that could have happened for a kid, and yet she was above him, and she was able to do so many things by herself because she had to. Through the years, our school loved Jasmine, but we pushed and pushed and pushed Jasmine until Jasmine and her family began to see that she had a brilliance in her that is not normal, and that she was able to do great things. So my first interaction with Jasmine was that 5-year-old wearing a yellow dress, reaching above her head, trying to jump up like Michael Jordan and smack the doorbell so that she could be let in, because she was so small our camera didn't even pick her up. My most recent interaction with Jasmine was being there when she received her white coat. She is now Dr. Jasmine Seal. She graduated from the same university that I did. She took a year, went to Vanderbilt in Nashville, got an MBA, and then went to medical school, and she's going to be a pediatrician. There's Jasmine sitting in every single classroom in America. We just have to pull that brilliance out. And we have to make sure that they know that they're that brilliant, and that their families know that they can do great things. So I'm incredibly, incredibly proud of Jasmine. But those of you who are getting ready to come into the classroom, I'm going to tell you a little secret. Everyone thinks they're an expert on schools because everyone's been in a school. When you are in that classroom, you are the expert. You are the one that spends all of your time with students. You see what happens when bad policies are implemented. And so that's why it's really, really important that you have a teacher voice. And by teacher voice, I don't mean how you talk to your kids. I have that teacher voice too. But what I mean is that you are, from the beginning, ready and able to advocate for your things that your kids need. You don't have to go to Washington, D.C. and stand on the steps of the Capitol and make a big speech. It can be something like going to your principal and being like, hey, I don't think 10 minutes playtime is enough for my first graders. Small things add up, but it's absolutely our jobs. No one else will advocate for those kids in our classroom. So it's really, really important that we are the ones who advocate for those kids in our classroom. And when that happens, whenever you're that expert and you have that level of assurance, it allows you to look for the good things. There will always be joy in teaching, no matter how hard teaching is right now, because teaching's hard right now. There will always be joy in teaching. What other job are you going to have where the most popular girl and guy in school will hit their friends because they want to be next to you? What other job will you have where you see a kid who can read 5 words at the beginning of the year, and by the end of the year they can read 100 words? What other job will you have where parents come to you and say, hey, my kid said this, I didn't know this, because you taught their whole family something when you taught the kid something, and then the student goes home and tells the family, the whole family's expanded their knowledge base. So it's absolutely important that you consider yourself to be that expert. It's also absolutely important that you always, always, always look for the joy. Now, whenever we talk about looking for the joy, That means that you have to see yourself as a problem solver, not a complainer. There's a difference. A complainer is someone that just fusses about something and they don't really have a path out. A problem solver is someone who they see the problem, but then they want to help create and answer the problem. And what I've found is if you go in your principal's office and you've thought about something and you have a solution, if you have a solution in hand, it's going to work out a lot better than if you just go in to fuss. If you just go in to fuss, your principal's going to be like, she's back, and that's going to be it. But if you go in and you have an idea, hey, I've looked at the playground schedule. There's a way that we all can have more than 10 minutes. And studies have shown our kids need that movement. If you go in with a solution in hand, you're likely to have way more results. Because the bottom line is this: education is the only field that makes all other fields possible. We create every single profession. Architects are not born, doctors are not born, nurses are not born, teachers are not born. They're created. But teachers have a hand in that creation of every single field. So what we do has to count, and we have to do it high level. So I'm going to come back to Adrian, and I'm going to leave you with some advice with my Adrian. He has the 11 going on 37, getting married at 18 guy. So Adrian is very, very incredibly mature, probably because his mom had him when she was 14. He's grown up with just him and mom for a really long time. He is so defensive of her. He's so defensive of me. He's so defensive of his friends. He thinks he always has to be the kid who takes care of everyone else because that's been his role. So whenever I was announced as the National Teacher of the Year, one of the things that I found out on national TV in front of everyone that I was going to get to do was to go to the White House and have a state dinner at the White House. And so about a week or so before I was to go, my fourth graders, and Adrian was a fourth grader, asked, "Are you nervous?" I said, "Yes, I'm very nervous. Just being able to speak in the White House is an amazing honor, and I still can't believe it's real." So Adrian scoots himself back from the table and he said, "Well, I'm just going to give you some advice, and I hope you listen. When you're up there and everyone's looking at your dress and your hair and your eyebrows and your makeup and your fingernails and your shoes, just maybe don't say anything dumb, okay?" My friends, I have no better advice in life. In every situation, just maybe don't say anything dumb. But Adrian is just the best. So I want to thank you for letting me be here. And I thank you. I know some of you came great distances. You came and took time out of your evening, and I'm so appreciative. But we have some panelists who are going to come up. We're going to have like our own little game thing. Do you want to call them? You want to call them up? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you guys so much. I am really excited about this. You all did a great job of like the assortment of things. Hey, again, how are you? Good. I was able to see Priscilla earlier today in her native habitat at her school, beautiful Marfa Elementary School. So this is actually our second meeting today. All right. Oh, sorry.
Quick little thing.
Okay. Oh, sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd be glad to.
Okay.
I think I'm supposed to use this, right? Okay. May I call you Missy?
Absolutely. Please
Okay.
do. Please
Well,
do.
I'm older than you are, so I
Well,
sort of feel like
that's-
that's an acceptable thing to do.
It's acceptable.
Okay. Missy, I've been in education a long time, and I'm scared for education.
Yeah.
I'm scared for my children. I'm scared for my state. And I'm scared for my country. In the state of Texas, I see some bad things happening. The climate of public education is changing. And the leadership at our state level is no longer funding public education like it needs to be funded to do the job we need to do. I am hopeful that you're going to tell me that in Tennessee, that is not the climate. I am hopeful that what we're seeing in Texas is not happening all over our country. So could you please share what you see happening in your state towards public education?
So in Tennessee, we have a statement that if Texas or Florida have a bad idea, Tennessee will kill itself rushing to implement the same bad idea. We unfortunately are seeing exactly what you're talking about with the lack of funding. It's still a mandate. A lot of the mandates are federal. They must be complied with. The state is just not funding them. The Tennessee legislature last year actually entertained the idea of turning away $2.1 billion, with a B, $billion in educational funding from the federal government so that we didn't have to listen to them. Well, the reality is those are federal laws. They must still be complied with. All that would happen is that you're then giving that $2 billion to other states. So I would love to tell you Tennessee has it figured out, but we do not. I feel like that a lot of the exact extreme legislation that you guys are seeing is actually what we're seeing as well. I know vouchers are an issue here. Last year, Tennessee and Texas were both successful fighting back the vouchers, but the vouchers will come back again every legislative season because it's bigger than our legislators. It's bigger than us. These are outside groups that are trying to mess with public education. My only advice is that we can't give up. We have kids who are depending on us, and we absolutely can't give up, even when it feels like it's easier to give up. So thank you for not giving up. That was a great question. Great. Priscilla, would you like to go next?
Okay. Did I just talk? Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
This is actually my second year teaching pre-K, so is there any class management tips that you would like to give to beginning teachers as far as a positive environment for the kids?
Okay, if you're already teaching pre-K and you've done it for a couple years, you're like an expert at this already. Our pre-K teachers are just incredible. You bring these kids in who've not had any structure and you have them lining up to get jackets one at a time. That is just amazing. My only suggestion for any teacher with classroom management, it is easier to start off structured and to loosen up than it is to start out really loose, trying to be everyone's friend and get control. It will not happen that way. So have those procedures, those I don't want to call them rules, but procedures in place for everything. The kids will get used to those, and then in May, if you want to let kids go without shoes on in your classroom, you can do that. But don't start August letting kids not wear shoes in your classroom. And I say that because I was in Oklahoma a couple of weeks ago, and I was in a school, and none of the kids had shoes on. Well, I would do that sometimes on Fridays. It was like a big deal, like, okay, it's test day. You can't go in the bathroom without your shoes, but just in our classroom, I don't know why. It's a big free thing you can do with kids that thrills them. But these kids had their shoes off in September on a Wednesday. I'm not sure about that one. But just have those procedures in place, stick with them, and you can always loosen up later. So, but I have a feeling you've got it pretty well figured out. Absolutely. So, I'm sorry, I'm having to look back. Esteban, would you like to go next?
Yes, ma'am. Teaching is a very demanding profession. How do you deal with professional burnout? How do you balance your work life and your personal life? Because with teaching, they kind of get interconnected. So how do you personally deal with that professional burnout? That
is a fabulous question, and I'm glad that you realize already that they are interconnected, especially when you live in a community like this. You can't even go to the grocery store. You know, the kids are like, why are you in the grocery store? You know, like you just stay at the school all of the time. I would love to tell you like that I'm this beacon of knowledge and that I have this great work-life balance. I do not. So just know that the things I'm going to say to you, I don't always do. But number one, you have to find a way to take care of yourself. Whether that you enjoy exercising or reading, watching ball games, find something you like to do and make sure that you carve out time for you to do those things. It is perfectly okay to let your parents know at the beginning of the year, I will not text you back at 9 o'clock. Now, in my situation, a lot of times my parents don't contact me till really late. They've gotten off work. They've gotten something from school and they don't understand, but that's a rule that I willingly break. I also don't have small children at home. My husband's very understanding of the role that I play. But as a younger teacher, it is perfectly okay to be like, I won't answer any messages after 4. It's perfectly okay for you to have that balance, but you've got to find things that you enjoy doing, because the worst thing that can happen is that you get burned out, because teachers who are burnt out are not effective. They lose that joy we talked about, and so it is important that you do maintain that work-life balance. I do a terrible job at it. I will be completely honest about it, but I do think it's very, very important. That's a great question.
Hi, I'm just glad you all are teaching and it's not some of us, because I would be pulling my hair by now. So thank you for doing what you all do. My question to you is, if a parent offers help, that they would come and help in any way they can, how would you take advantage of that?
Oh, absolutely. So when I was in the general classroom, those were my favorite parents, the ones who are like, I want to come help. I can find things for you to do. And a lot of times parents, you know, are intimidated by the situation. They're like, I don't know how to teach. You don't have to know how to teach. If you just want to come in and let one of my kids read to you, and you just supply the word they don't know, that's a big, huge help. If you want to come in and sort things out for me, if you want to come in and read my kids a story, there are always things that you can do. And a lot of our very, very best paraprofessionals were parents who started like you, like you're mentioning. They wanted to come in and volunteer. They got very, very comfortable. We hired them, and they are just absolutely fantastic. We have a large number of 2 in my whole town. We have 2 Muslim families in my town. And so being in Rogersville, Tennessee, and living there, that's sometimes a difficult existence. But I have one of my Egyptian moms who came in, and she's the mother of the twins and the older girl. She would come in when I had the older girls, and she would listen to my students read. She can read in English. All she had to do was, you know, supply the word. Very, very non-threatening. She would come help sort things. She was fabulous. Well, she's now substituting at my school. I do not think for a minute she would have done that if we hadn't started. And, you know, the next year when they went on to 3rd grade, I was like, hey, her name's Rania. Rania is fabulous. You need to get Rania here to help you. Once the twins started school, she needed an outlet to do. So parents, I think, are some of the absolute best helpers. And a lot of times that's a pathway for us to find really good substitutes and also really good paraprofessionals. Yeah, absolutely. All right, are we good? Okay. Those were great questions. You all did very well. Oh, I did not have to do that. How sweet.
Oh, yay. Oh, yeah.
So now you will not be.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can do this. Yay.
That's awesome.
Okay, so the next thing we want to do is have the raffle, and we're going to have Missy
Yay.
names. Okay, so we've got 5 raffles to give away, and these are all mixed up by our people outside. So I think I'm just going to have
Good deal. I'll just pull. Okay. Do you want me to announce or you want to announce? Okay. All right. The first one is Bonnie Lujan. Is that right? Yay! Good deal. All right. Yeah. This little one back here. Okay. The next one is Marissa Villanueva. Yeah, yay! Good for you. Did your brother help you with that? Did your brother? Oh, that's your. Listen, she looks so young. I thought that was her little brother. I swear I did until she got close. She's like, what? Yeah. That's a compliment, by the way. Trust me. By the time you get my age, no one says that, and you'll wish someone did. All right, let's see. Priscilla.
Okay, now wait a minute.
Do you all have a lottery? You may need to go buy some tickets.
I sat there and said, I hope she draws my name. Wow.
Yeah, it was a setup because you said that. Okay. Melissa Wesney. Yay! Melissa, were you also born in the 1900s? Melissa is a 1900s name, yeah. Oh, yeah. That was a popular name. That's my first name, too. Okay, let's go right here. Last but not least is Kiana Kobos. Is that right? Yay! All right. I'll let you come in and I'll go down. Oh, stand here? Okay. Oh, I got that. Draw my name.
Yep. Right, I didn't even draw her name.
That's pretty awesome.
I want to thank Missy for presenting at Sul Ross. And we have this small gift to give you just as a memory. And I know it's a little cold outside, so we got her a Sul Ross sweatshirt.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
But as we all know, it's a long trip out here, so we just appreciate you coming, and I hope you're able to enjoy the campus and enjoy Alpine while you're here.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful area.
So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Yes. I need to mention the First Lady, Lupita Hernandez. It's her birthday, so happy birthday. And I want to thank Dr. Kornstrom for arranging this. There's absolutely no better arranger than Dr. Kornstrom, and she's fantastic. So thank you. We've had so many people help. Dr. Miller, she drove students up from Del Rio to enjoy the presentation. A lot of people helping, with the camera. Vince, Bobby, Joan made some of the posters, campus activities. Just there's a lot of people that helped, make tonight possible. So I just want to thank everybody. And I want to recognize our provost, Dr. Ken Tenz, is here tonight. And our chair of education, Dr. Carpenter, is here also. And we do have a lot of our education faculty. I really appreciate everybody coming. Dr. Gear came up from Del Rio, so thank you so much. Or Uvalde, thank you. Thanks so much for everybody attending. We do have lots of food, so please either stay and eat or take a plate. Just enjoy the rest of the evening, and thank you.